Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this live event on the art of negotiating in the age of AI. Thank you to the people that are joining live, to the people that will be watching the recording, and most important, to Yadvinder Rana, my colleague and friend that is with us today, and we will ask him to introduce himself in a moment. My name is Giuseppe Conti. I'm a business school professor, the founder of Conti Advanced Business Learning, a company that specializes in negotiation and influencing. Now, but before I'm going to ask Yadvinder to introduce himself, let me ask a question to the people that are with us today. And the simple question is, how often do you use ChatGPT in a week? So just put a number and don't be afraid to put zero, right? It's perfectly okay, right? We know that there are many people that are not using ChatGPT on a regular basis. So don't be afraid. So let me rephrase the question again. How many times in a week do you use ChatGPT? So once you are with us, drop us a quick note and let us know where you stand in terms of using ChatGPT. And then if you want to tell us also from where you're connecting, then of course, that will be great. Oh, we start seeing 10 times at least. Wow. 1 or 2, 5, 3, 0, 0, more than 5, 0, 1, between 10 and 20, 1 or 2, between 5 and 10, 1 over 30. Oh, Victoria. 20, Eric, how you doing? Okay, so hi Nelson, good to see you. Anna, 0, we're gonna get it more. I use it only once until now. Yes, Andrea, it's of course it's pretty normal because it is not yet part of our habits, right? For some people have integrated into their daily life, and then people like Eric, Victoria, Irina, then they use it on a very regular basis. But for many of us, is not yet part of our habits, and that's why we are here to try to get some more insight. Today we're going to be looking at negotiation and artificial intelligence. So thank you very much for sharing all this with us. And as we want to share some more with you on this, let me first start by sharing some more about who is with us today to talk about negotiating in the age of AI. Yadvinder, can you say a few words about yourself?
For sure. Great to be here, first of all. Thank you. As Giuseppe was saying, we are colleagues and friends. I run workshops and trainings for his company, the Conti Advanced Business Learning. I'm a negotiation professor, and my research is focused on complex negotiations, especially cross-border M&A negotiations, and at the intersection between AI and the negotiation. We can't be experts on this kind of domain because it's quite recent, but we can share our experience and knowledge, that's for sure.
Fantastic. So now I do recognize, even though there are a few exceptions, there are a few people that use ChatGPT a lot, but there are many that do not. So if you don't mind, Yadvinder, I will start with the basic. Could you explain what a large language model, LLM is, and how it functions in a way that a non-technical audience can easily understand?
I think it's very important to understand how a language model works because it also gives us a direction on how to use it best. Now, first of all, language models are not a traditional software. This is very important. Traditional softwares are predictable. They come with a set of instructions. If you follow the instructions, you come out with a predictable outcome. A language model is not like that. At its core, it's an AI system that have learned to understand and generate human-like text. And how does it do it? Its structure is like the human brain, made of interconnected neurons that go undergo a training with a massive amount of data set. So what the language model does is it learns patterns and structure of human language. That's what it does. And how does it work? It converts a piece of text into tokens, and it predicts the next token based on a statistical relationship that it learned through its training. So what we can say is that a language model doesn't give you the right answer when you prompt. The response is not the right answer, but it's the most plausible answer. This is very important. And if you ask again the same with the same prompt, the response will be slightly different. This is why language models are prone to hallucinations. This is why, yes.
Wow. Okay. Now, just going a bit deeper. You mentioned, of course, that large language models are not traditional software. So, what does it mean for how we interact with and utilize this type of technology?
Language models don't store information. They have no memory. They only predict the next word in a sentence, so they are unpredictable. And the main strength of language model is creativity. And how to use them, because we have no set of instructions, I would advise to make AI your companion. Use it as much as you can. We had some of our viewers that use it more than 20, 30 times a week. This is the best way to understand its strengths, its weaknesses, its nuances. Going back to the fact that it's the best tool for creativity, there are two studies that I would like to mention. One is the Boston Consulting Group study that was performed at the end of 2023, involving 758, if I think, consultants. And ChatGPT increased the performance of these consultants by over 40% in a creativity task, but it was not able to increase their performance in a problem-solving task. And also in Wharton, they came up with a contest of generating ideas to present to investors. And the best ideas, 35 out of 40, were generated by ChatGPT. So I really think that the best use of ChatGPT and large language models is to focus on their creativity, not on the fact that they could be reliable, because they're not at the end. And what is interesting is that the language model improve much more than performance of low performers. So it can help level our workforce, for example, our negotiation skills. It can improve our negotiation skills, that's for sure.
Now, interesting. This one that improves more the low performer, of course, because they may get the most out of it. But no, negotiation are a complex skill, right? How can large language models specifically support negotiation? Are there particular stage of the process where they may add the most value?
Giuseppe, you and I have been talking about that a lot. How can ChatGPT language models improve our performance and of our students? I really think that if you look at the different stages of the negotiation process, ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever can help us during the preparation phase, but in a very specific way. It can help us, for example, to identify, to determine the alternatives, the priorities, the constraints of the other party, so that we have a better understanding of the negotiation context. And I use it a lot to create different scenarios so that I can prepare myself at different priorities of the other party, of different events that can happen. And you can also role play with the ChatGPT. You can create a role play according to different scenarios and understand better the different priorities of the other party. So I really think that ChatGPT can be very, very useful because it can allow you to think out of the box, to generate ideas, to be creative, that's for sure. So on the preparation side, it's very, very useful. But I also think during the negotiation process, there are a lot of AI tools that now take notes, give you an understanding of what's happening. For example, in a meeting or during Zoom meetings, during Teams meetings, we can use this ability of AI to have real-time feedback. Imagine a companion that tells you, look, you are out of topic. Be careful. the conflict is rising, so be careful what you say. New events, new information is coming, and we were not prepared. That's very, very useful because it can in some way lead us to different paths. So it is very, very useful. And something else that I've been studying and researching is the use of ChatGPT in providing, in decreasing barriers. Both of us have a lot of international negotiations. Imagine a tool that can improve our language skills, for example, or reduce our biases. We all come with biases in decision making, and having something like a conversation with a companion, with an intelligent companion, can help us to reduce these biases. And I think another tool, another use of ChatGPT that can be adopted is to include individuals, for example, with disabilities. Why? Because it can bring them to the negotiation table and reduce the barrier. So I think the use of ChatGPT and language models is very, very wide, and we are just learning how to use it.
Fantastic. Now, by the way, happy to see that two of the people that use the most ChatGPT, David and Victoria, have already started to raise questions. By the way, our philosophy is this is your event, so we want to try to address as much as possible your question. Do not hesitate to use the chat that you find on the right side of your screen to ask our question. We'll try to address it. Now, before we go to the question, there is just one point that I would like to build on all the different ideas you have given. Role play with ChatGPT. Can you explain to participants how can you role play with ChatGPT?
You have to give ChatGPT a context, so a persona, and provide them with some information on the negotiation situation and the different scenarios that can occur. And ChatGPT will act as that persona, as that individual, with specific priorities, specific interests, and you can really role play and understand what can happen, objections, new ideas that you can bring to make it more integrative. So role playing with ChatGPT is very, very useful. I've been adopting this this tool for the last 3-4 months, and I've seen that to be very, very, very useful for sure. But you have to be very, very careful in providing as much as information as you can. So patience is important. You have to build the case. It's something like building role plays as we do in classes. It's more or less the same.
Yeah. And by the way, this is your point that you just made, this fact of that you have to build the case and that, you have to provide the right information, etc., is one of the essence, right? About how much value you're going to get from ChatGPT, Bard, or Gemini, or whatever. Now, this builds well with the first question that we have. And the first question comes from David, and David asks, are there specific prompts? Are there specific prompts you can share to get this process started?
Yes, for sure. Now, let's go back a step back 1 second. When you prompt engineering is something between an art and a science because we are all learning it. Okay. So the first fact is that effective prompts include 4, some people say 5 areas, but I think 4 areas are very important. So you have to give ChatGPT or Bard or Gemini, as you said, a persona. So they have to act as a role. This is very, very important. Second, you have to give them a task. So the task will be, you'll be negotiating, you'll be role playing with me. You have to provide context. And context is the most important part of a prompt. Context provide all the information that are useful for ChatGPT to role play. For example, you are a senior buyer working for a German company in this specific industry, and you give them some history of the relationship with the supplier, and if you are acting as a supplier. And you also, sometimes I also give them negotiation styles. I tell them, look, the buyer is very competitive, but also if you can build a relationship, they can become more integrative. And the same goes with the seller. I give ChatGPT also the negotiation styles. And we can use also DISC, but usually use the negotiation styles. I provide context, as much as information as you can is very important, and also your priority, your interest. And before you have also brainstorm their interests, their priorities, and you bring them in the context. So context is very important, is the third area. And the fourth is the format. How would you like ChatGPT to respond? So with these four areas, you can deliver a very useful prompt for sure, but the context is the most important. I recently read that most of the prompts we do with ChatGPT are made of 9, maximum 10 words, while effective prompts require more than 20 words. This is why the context is very important. So, David, I'm replying to your question is give ChatGPT a persona, give it a task, it is role playing, and give it a context, as much as information as you can about the negotiation. This is very, very important. The more information you give, the best is the role play. It's more or less what you find in classes where you are role playing with instructions.
Yeah. Maybe let me add a small spin on this topic. One of the tools that I use on a regular basis is Umantic, and I'm going to quickly put the website on the chat, umantic.ai. Okay, and this is a tool that gives you an estimation of the personality of the person based on what they put on LinkedIn and on X, former Twitter. So one of the if you do have access to umantic.ai and you have the profile of the person, then one of the things that you can do as part of describing the person is adding the personality profile of the person that comes from Umantic, and then you can have an extra spin of information that you can provide to ChatGPT to give you even better replies.
And it is something I use in the role-playing exercise in our brainstorm with ChatGPT, the Umantic profile of somebody from LinkedIn. It's very useful. How much is accurate? It's a question mark, but it's a starting point. It helps you a lot.
Yeah. By the way, one thing, I want you to be aware that Yadvinder and I do offer a more comprehensive workshop. It's a 3-hour on negotiating with AI. So if you want to train your team of buyer, your team of salesperson around how to best leverage artificial intelligence for their negotiation, then do not hesitate to drop me a message, and I'll be happy to give you more details on how can you move your team to the next level by leveraging AI. Since we are just in the middle of this, let me also tell you a few words about our next event in a couple of weeks. So it's still on Monday. It's gonna be the 13th of May, still at 1 o'clock Central European time. We will talk about stakeholders engagement. So if you're working in a function, for instance, like procurement, where you need to work with your stakeholders and the collaboration with them may not be always ideal, then join us, and I will be with me and other of the colleagues at TABL, Matthias Manegold, and he will be sharing with us some ideas about how can we do an outstanding stakeholder engagement. So, stay tuned and follow us so that you will get the details probably tomorrow or on Wednesday. We will issue the link to the LinkedIn Live so that you can continue to join us. Now, Yadvinder, there are so many questions. Let me take the next one is from Victoria. Hello, Victoria. Do you have to use paid ChatGPT for this kind of support during the negotiation? And I think more in general, probably Yadvinder, it may be interesting to give an idea to the audience about, what are some of the difference between the free version and the paid version.
Victoria, I've been using the paid version for a few months, yes, of ChatGPT, and the difference compared to, for example, the free ChatGPT that my kids use, for example, it's a lot. It's a lot, especially if you have to brainstorm complex ideas, if you have to role play, then you can really see the difference. If I'm not mistaken, we spoke about how ChatGPT is built as a brain of with interconnected neurons. I think the paid version, ChatGPT 4, has 170 billion interconnections between neurons, while ChatGPT 3.5 has only 7 billion. So the difference is 20 by multiplied by 20. So it's a lot. Something I use, Victoria, because I also have Gemini with Google Workspace. I was talking to Giuseppe recently. I use Gemini to build the prompts for ChatGPT. This is a very interesting thing, and they work much better than my prompts. I give something like some instructions, a very simple prompt to Gemini, and Gemini provides me with a very nice prompt for ChatGPT, and it works very, very well. So I think we can also use ChatGPT to create prompts for itself. Sorry, himself, herself. That's a tricky question. So, for example, you provide ChatGPT a prompt, and then you ask ChatGPT to improve it, and then to respond to that improved prompt. They're usually much better than the ones we provide, that's for sure. But coming back to your question, Victoria, there is a huge difference. According to the numbers, is 20 by 20 multiplier. And also from my experience, I can see a lot of difference. But I also see a lot of difference between ChatGPT and Gemini. Gemini, for me, is much better. These are the only two that I'm using. Gemini is much better for example, writing emails, writing documents. I prefer Gemini to ChatGPT. But if I have to brainstorm, to come with different scenarios and everything, ChatGPT is better than Gemini, that's for sure.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Listen, we take one more question because there are so much interest from our audience. And let's try to see what Pim's question is. Both sales and procurement can use ChatGPT during a negotiation. What is the most likely outcome when used on both sides? Is it more beneficial for procurement or for sales? And how to recognize a situation where sales use ChatGPT as well?
Now, from a very theoretical standpoint, if both the parties in a negotiation are assisted by ChatGPT, I think the negotiation will be much more prepared, both of them. And if both sides are more prepared, the negotiation is better. Why? Because you can find more options for integrative negotiations. We want negotiations to be transparent, to be fair, to have an integrative outcome. This is a way. This is one of the ways. I was mentioning before that ChatGPT could provide us a transparent and fair negotiation process, and that helps. Is beneficial for both the parties. You can be procurement, you can be sales, but I think the ChatGPT, if both sides used and ChatGPT, they will come to the negotiation table much better prepared. If the preparation is better, you have more room for being transparent and also more room for being integrative. So, Pim, if I could give you my recommendation is you have to hope that the other party is using ChatGPT so that you can have a better negotiation.
Let me build on this topic from Yadvinder, because one of my colleagues, Keldi Jensen, did a specific research on this topic, trying to compare, the behavior of different pairs of people, whether nobody was using ChatGPT, one of the party was using ChatGPT, both of the party were using ChatGPT, and confirming what Yadvinder just says. The best outcomes when both parties were using ChatGPT. Not only they were coming up with better agreements, they were also faster in reaching an agreement. And by the way, in more general terms, ChatGPT has a cooperative type of spirit. Let's say is not focused towards competition, is more focused towards cooperation. And like Yadvinder was mentioning, creativity being one of the elements that does well, certainly can help to find solution that may escape to some of the human being. Excellent. Why don't we continue with this question, because Irina for sure has a great one. Great discussion so far. What's your experience in handling simulation negotiation on a highly technical topic, for example, in medical device or pharma with heavy scientific data?
I haven't done something like that, Irina, to tell you the truth. But I've used ChatGPT to prepare for technical negotiations. But if it's highly technical, I have no experience on that. But what I can think of is that you have to be careful in how much information you provide. There is a limit of tokens that ChatGPT can take. It's improving, it's increasing day by day, especially in the paid version. But still, you have to be careful in how much information you provide. So if it is a lot of technical information, I don't know if ChatGPT will be able to absorb it, to memorize it, and then to provide the right feedback during the negotiation. It's something I would like to try. It's something I will try for sure. But my take on this is be careful in how much information you provide, how much technical you become. Yes.
Amazing. Now, let me ask you one more question, Yadvinder. What are some of the best practice or guidelines to get the most out of the interaction with large language models, so that we can help our audience to have a few key ideas that they can keep in mind and can translate immediately into action?
We already mentioned the fact that effective prompting includes 4 areas that are persona, task, context, and format. This is very important. Provide context, be patient. You have to guide the large language model. It doesn't understand your intent if you're not explicit. This is very important. And use it as a conversation. Have a conversation with the large language model. Ethan Mollick in Co-Intelligence sometimes refers to the ChatGPT and large language models as people, as individuals. I don't think I don't know if I fully agree with that, but for sure you have to have a conversation, a back and forth conversation. What is most important is the only type of prompt that until now has scientific support from several studies is chain of thought. Chain of thought is give the model step-by-step instructions and provide the model with some examples, 1 or 2 examples, and have a conversation, back and forth conversation. You give a prompt, you get an answer, and you refine your prompt afterwards. So don't go with the first answer. Don't go with the first response. Another thing that I find very useful, usually I give ChatGPT a draft before, something I have thought as an example of instructions. So provide always ChatGPT with something like a draft, something like an example, so that he or she knows what to follow. This is very, very important. And remember, this is a software that has no instructions, so we have to experiment a lot. See what works best for you. While we use prompts, another thing that is useful is to use separations. Separate the different parts of an instruction, so it's easier for ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever to absorb the information. So I think these 4 or 5 recommendations work well. Yes.
Fantastic. Now, to conclude, Yadvinder, I mean, you were mentioning before about 2 topics that are close to our heart, fairness and transparency, which are crucial in negotiation. Could you elaborate how now artificial intelligence may help promote those values? and what potential challenges we should be aware of?
Yes. Now, the first thought I have is if it provides a transcript of the conversation, for example, then it can be very useful because we can go back to the transcript and say, look, Giuseppe said that. No, he didn't say so. He has hidden information. He has been not being transparent. It can be also a depository for information. For example, there is some information that I want to say, look, it's there, but I don't want to share it fully. It's zero knowledge proof that is very common in blockchain that we can also bring in artificial intelligence. So it's something else. It also helps to create a procedure, a negotiation process that is more fair. So there are a set of rules that we have to follow in order to negotiate. So all these things can be performed with artificial intelligence and large language models for sure.
Fantastic. Yadvinder, that was a very rich insight. Maybe, a simple takeaway for all the ones that are listening and that are not using much of ChatGPT. If you want to make a better prompt, remember to give them a persona. You are going to be the senior buyer of Nestle and you're negotiating with. You give them a task, you give them a context, and then you give the format of the response that you would like to get. And remember, of course, that it's going to be an interactive process that you can improve it as you make, as the discussion goes forward. Maybe you give them some examples on what you expect, and this improves your outcome. So give it a try. It's Monday. You have the whole week to give it a try. I hope that the ideas from Yadvinder gave you the motivation to start using those tools and hopefully get better results in your negotiation. Yadvinder, thank you very much for a very rich session. By the way, we do offer, like I was mentioning before, a 3-hour session customized for corporate customers. If you want to find out a bit more, do drop me a message. And if you want to continue the learning journey with us, then join us on the 13th of May at 1 o'clock. We will be talking about stakeholders engagement with Matthias Manegold. All the very best. Thanks again, and look forward to connect soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.